A very good morning, my dear students. Hope all you are very fine and you are continuously in touch with the school website and the teachers taking their classes, also reaching to all of you. Look at all the classes very carefully. It will help you in the future exams. So today I will continue the same chapter, the first war of independence. We are at the end of these chapters. Very few points are there which need to discuss from the topic, the results of first war of independence. Among the results, among the consequences of the first war of independence, in the last class, I discussed number one, the end of company rule, that is, what changes brought by the British after the War of Independence. So we clearly discussed about the changes brought in the administration. Company rule no longer there. Instead of company, now there are board of councils along with the Secretary of the State, and as the head of the state of India, head of the Indian administration was appointed under the title the Viceroy. I also discussed last class the solemn pledges of Queen Victoria. What promises made by Queen Victoria to the rulers of the native kingdoms in order to restore the lost confidence on the British administration. Secondly, I also discussed the what promises made by Queen Victoria to the general public of India in order to pacify, in order to please the Indians. Third point, last day I discussed that after the end of the first war of independence, the two ruling dynasties of India, who were the traditional rulers of India, one, the Mughal emperors, Mughal dynasty, second, the Maratha powers, the Maratha ruling families, their rules comes to an end. After the death of Bahadur Shah Jafar or the Nana Sahib Tatia Tope, all Maratha leaders, there was none of them allowed to continue here in India. Only one of the grandson of Shivaji were given a small piece of land to rule. Mughal empires, whatever the territories under the Mughal, all now come under the direct control of the British rule. So there was no rulers of India, ruling class of India prevailing after the war of independence. So that 3 points I discussed in the last class. I will continue from there in today's class. Another important consequences of the war of independence, that is the reorganization of the army. I told you in the first class, it was the armies of the company, it was the sepoys of the company raised the voice against the introductions of the Enfield rifle and its greased cartridges. It is the beginning of the first war of independence, and naturally the weapons, the ammunition, whatever provided to the company to the Indian soldiers, they used it against their own masters. They realized, the British government, after the end of War of Independence, we need to also reorganize the army. In what way they reorganized? Number one, they increased the European soldiers against the Indian soldiers. I told you in the causes, there was a faulty distribution of the soldiers. There are more Indian numbers than the Indian soldiers. If there are 2 lakh Indian soldiers, there are only 40,000 European soldiers. They learned from their mistakes and now they were correcting their mistakes by increasing the European troops against the Indian soldiers. Now they decided 1:2. It will be the ratio. In some places 2:5. So that in near future the Indian soldiers not dare to revolt against their masters. With this objective, number of the Indian soldiers against the Indians increased. Second important changes they brought in the army, it was all the strategic places, geographically important positions are completely kept under the strict watch of the Europeans. There is a completely absence of Indian soldiers in those important places, places of strategic importance. No Indian soldiers are appointed. All these places kept under the strict supervision of European soldiers, which means that indirectly the British government lost the confidence on the Indian soldiers. Third important thing, just I told you, the ammunition, the weapons, the cartridges provided by Eastern Company to the Indian soldiers, and they used it during the revolt against their own masters. So naturally, now they also learn from their own mistakes. And now all artilleries, imported weapons, important cartridges, important guns are not giving to the Indians. Strictly prevented to carry the arms with them at their regiment and others. Not allow them. So all ammunitions, explosives, other weapons kept under the full control of the European soldiers. Because the British government did not want to do the same mistakes what they did in early years. So this is also corrected their own mistakes by keeping all the weapons, all the artilleries, all the explosives under the control of the European soldiers. Fourthly, and after the British rule, there was no changes of the policy of the British government towards the Indian soldiers. High post, important positions like the officer ranks are not given to the Indians. So this policy was continuing. Indians were aloof or prevented to get the highest post, highest position in the army. Fifth important changes they brought in the army. It is very dangerous. In order to prevent the nationalism among the Indian soldiers, in order to prevent the unity among the Indian soldiers, now they adopted the policy of discrimination in the name of the caste, in the name of the color, in the name of the religion. Which means in the name of caste, the soldiers were now divided. In the name of color also. In the name of religion also. Why? In order to prevent the concept of growing nationalism and unity among the Indian soldiers. The British government realized from their mistakes, the unity is the strength. Unity is strength. So in order to divide the unity, they adopted the policy of discrimination in the name of religion, in the name of the caste, in the name of the color. So these are other important things. Not only that, in order to prevent nationalism among the Indian soldiers, no Indian journals, no Indian newspapers reached to the Indian soldiers. They were remained out of what was happening in the countries. No news reached to them. They were in dark about the present position, about the present incidents of the country. So in order to prevent nationalism and unity here also, or to develop a common idea, among the Indian soldiers. No newspapers, no journals were allowed to reach to the Indian soldiers. So there are many changes the British government brought after the War of Independence. They arranged the army in such a way so that they can avoid such revolt, such uprising in future. So these are what important changes that took place. Second important thing, the policy of divide and rule, another important consequence of War of Independence. Just now I told you, they learned from their own mistakes. They learned from the experience. The Hindu Muslim, if they were united, it is a strength, a huge strength. During the first War of Independence, both Hindu leaders and the Muslim leaders fought together, shoulder to shoulder, against the common enemy, that is the British. Only one common goal, how to drive out the British from the Indian soil and establish the rule of Mughals. All other leaders, like Nana Sahib, Tatia Tope, many more other Hindu leaders, they accepted Bazu Jafar as their real ruler, as their real representative of India. They accepted Bazu Jafar as the Mughal emperor, the ruler of India. And they fought under the leadership of Bahadur Jafar. They declared Bahadur Jafar as the real rulers of India during the first War of Independence. So naturally, the British government wanted to divide it. They adopted the policy, what we call divide and rule. In what way they divide? The British considered the first War of Independence largely instigated by the Muslims. A large portion of Muslim population involved in the War of Independence. So Muslim people were targeted especially. Muslim people become the target of hatred of the British rule. They were punishing Muslims many ways. On the other hand, while they were creating distance with the Muslim population of India, at the same time now they are preferring the Hindus by giving jobs or piece of land in order to get support of the Hindu people against the Muslim. What was the ultimate object? Ultimate objective was to create a gap, to create differences between the Hindus and Muslims so that this community could not come close to each other and become a threat, pose a huge challenge to the British rule in India. So taking adverse decision against the Muslim and preferring the Hindus, this policy was continued till 1870. But with the growing concept of nationalism, when the Hindus people began to criticize the British government, British rule, British administration, again they decided to befriend with the Muslims against the Hindus. Now they target the Hindus and prefer the Muslims again. They re-establish the relationship with the Muslims of their own gain. So in this way, they adopted such policy intentionally to adopt, divide and rule. What was the ultimate result? Ultimate result was the partition of our country. The policy they adopted, it was continued till the partition of India into two halves, that is India and Pakistan. So this was the cause of the British policy of divide and rule. Third, the economic exploitation. It was expected by the Indian people, especially when the Queen Victoria promises to the Indian people. The Indian people began to see a dream after the War of Independence, after the declarations of the Queen Victoria, the exploitation of Indian resources, the exploitation of the Indian people may be reduced. But what happened? We saw that the exploitation of Indian people increased, rapidly increased after the War of Independence. In what ways the British government began to exploit us? I told you at the beginning of the War of Independence, gradually India became a dumping ground of British manufacturing goods. And secondly, producer of raw materials for the British industries. Whatever we produce here, it may be jute, it may be the cotton, it may be the indigo, simply sent to the British industries, sent for British industries. Nothing was produced. Indian market flooded with the British manufacturing goods. So India became a country of raw material producing, a second, the market for British manufacturing goods. In this way, they make a huge profit, and whatever the money they earn through the trade, not deposit to the Indian bank, not used for the development of India, they send this money to India, to England. Naturally, England began to flourish, but our country's economy going to ruin day by day. Secondly, the salary of the Secretary of State, the salary of the members of the council, the salary of the officers, the salary of the army were paid out of revenue from the India. And their salary simply drain off from India to England. Nothing comes from England to India. Not only their salary, even the pension, even the savings. They are not doing their savings in India also. Simply they send their money from India to England. So there is a huge drain of our money in the form of pension, in the form of salary, in the form of savings, in the form of profit are going to India, from India to England. Third important exploitation, especially the farmers. Farmers' debt highly increased. Even the farmers could not repay their loan. That's why the indigo farmers revolted in the year 1856 and 57, 55, 56 especially. They revolt against their own masters. They are forced to cultivate indigo, and they are forced to sell their indigo at a very lower price to the British government. They could not sell their indigo of their own choice to any other vendors to get the higher prices. But these were not allowed for the benefit of the British textile industries. Another important ways of exploitation, whatever the surplus money of England, they invested here, they invested in the coal mines, they invested in the jute mills, they invested in the textile mills, they invested any other factories, railways, even. But whatever dividend, and India had to pay a huge interest for this investment. The interest and the dividends simply go to England from India. Nothing was coming from England to India. So exploitation increased. Indian economy completely impoverished. Our agriculture completely impoverished. Our handicraft completely destroyed. Our artisans become unemployed. Because of what? Because the demand of those products decreasing now. They could not compete with the British manufacturing goods because British goods were made of in the machine. Our handicrafts, our artisans could not compete with them. In this way, exploitation of Indian people, exploitation of Indian resources, exploitation of Indian money increased rapidly after the first War of Independence. Second, the rise of nationalism. Yes, there is no doubt the first war of independence suppressed the rebellions of Indian people with heavy hands, suppressed by the British government. Ultimately, we could not stand against the British generals. We had a lack of money, we had lack of fund, we had lack of weapons, we had a lack of generals, we had a lack of leadership. So we could not stand many days against the British army. Ultimately and gradually, one after one, states or places they brought again under their own control, and most of the leaders either killed or arrested and put them behind the bar. They suppressed it. Yes, they suppressed, but we cannot deny the significance of the war of independence. The sacrifice of Nana Sahib, the sacrifice of Tatya Tope, the sacrifice of Bahadur Shah was not gone in vain, but it created the path of future India. He laid down the foundations of national movement in future in India. The sacrifice of Rai Sibai, the sacrifice of Nana Sahib, the sacrifice of Tatya Tope, the sacrifice of Bahadur Jafar, the sacrifice of Kunwar Singh, the sacrifice of Begum Hazrat Mahal, the sacrifice of Begum Zinal Mahal, all they who were contributing their heroic acts, the heroic deeds, we people of India could not forget. Naturally, whatever the national movement started after the war of independence, they got their inspiration, they got their courage, they got their spirit from the war of independence. From these people become a symbol of courage, symbol of sacrifice. They emerge as the national heroes. The sacrifice of Mangal Pandey, the first martyrs. So the feeling of nationalism, the feelings of Indians gradually developing among the Indians. Yes, it is true. We may be different in language, we may be different in caste, we may be different in religion, but we have one identity. We have one common problems. We have one common enemy. What is the common objective? To drop out British from Indian soil. Who is the common enemy? The British. What is the common thing? Exploitation by of Indian people, irrespective of their caste, color, and religion. In spite of the difference in religion, in spite of the difference in language, in spite of the difference in culture, but we have one identity, that is, we are all Indian and we were being exploited by the British government. Such things began to develop after the War of Independence. The first War of Independence was the pillar for the growth of nationalism among the Indians. We are all the son of the soil. India is our motherland. So we need to sacrifice the life for the cause of motherland. What Mangal Pandey, what Nana Sahib, what Tatya Tope, what Bahadur Jafar did during the War of Independence. So my dear students, almost we come to the end of this chapter first of independence. Now look at the nature of War of Independence. What is the nature of the War of Independence? Nature of the War of Independence. Here is a great controversy. In what ways they explain the War of Independence? Was it truly a War of Independence or simply or merely a Sepoy mutiny? The British historian dubbed it, considered it simply a Sepoy mutiny. They rejected the claim of the Indian historians and hailed it as the War of Independence. What is the logic of the British government? It is only confined within the few areas and mainly introduced by the sepoys. But on the other hand, the Indian soldiers like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, beat Savarkar, all they hailed and considered as the first War of Independence. Yes, it was true that the War of Independence started or introduced by the sepoys of the company, but it was not only confined with the sepoys. A large number of the people from other sections, irrespective of the caste, color, creed, and the sex, spontaneously joined to the first war independence with this dream to overthrow the British from the Indian soil. Large part of Indian territory come under the influence of War of Independence, and no doubt the War of Independence shaken the British rule in India. It was because of War of Independence the British government were forced to change their attitude towards the Indians. So truly, in true sense, we can say it was not a super mutiny, it was a war of independence. It was a great uprising of 1857. It was the War of Independence which laid the foundation of the future national movement of our country. So we have come to the end of the first chapter of history from your ICC syllabus. So thank you to all of my students for your cooperation.